Welcome back. We'll be keeping one eye on the track and one eye on the sky today because the weather could play a part in the race that's ahead of us. Craig Lowndes to start from pole position. His second of the weekend. He's already got 2 races from yesterday's sprint session. And the weather is, well, it's been changing so often over the last hour or so and pretty much since we turned up early today. So 200 kilometres, 28 starters. Works out 65 laps around here. A completely different scenario to what the guys went through yesterday when we had 2 22-lap races and a 15-minute service period in between. This race, of course, will go back to our regular strategy. So who will work that out the best? Who will play that strategy game the best? Remember, it's an all-soft tyre event, but the wets are on standby just in case. There's Tim Slade having a standout weekend. Best qualifying performance, best race performance, and he's ready to go charging again. Craig Lowndes is 170 points adrift now of his teammates, so he's cut the deficit by 16 points overall. Shane Van Gisbergen and Rick Kelly, 3rd and 4th on the championship table.
And just jumping ahead for a moment, thinking about the LNH 500 and the Supercheap Auto Bathurst 1000, you think about the points that are available for both those events, and they're a hit or miss affair because big events on the Sundays, 500Ks and 1000Ks. Gee, you look at that point spread at the moment, there's nobody out of the woods in terms of running away with this championship. Here's another look at our racetrack today, and Queensland Raceway, 6 corners. I think the interesting thing for me here is going to be just how much punishment these softer tyres take over a longer duration today. The expectation is that if it is dry, we're going to need to run them a little further than we saw yesterday. If you were with us yesterday, in fact, one of the things that was remarkable about both the races was just how consistent the tyres performed for the key runners. Lowndes in particular, I noticed in race 17, his last lap of the race was only about 0.8 of a second slower, Mark Scaife, than his peak value, and we were expecting higher degradation as we look on board there with James Moffat.
Yeah, he did a really good job. 22 laps yesterday. They basically did the race within 1 second of their fastest lap, as you said. And this one shapes up as a totally different equation. The strategy of today in terms of making the tyres live for a longer period of time and for us to ensure that they match up with their fuel strategy will be very difficult. Each team will have its own view on that, and we'll see how it unfolds.
2-minute signal, 2-minute signal.
2-minute signal there, so let's check out the Fuso grid for you. Lowndes and Whincup on the front row. Team Vodafone heading the list here. Craig Lowndes in search of his 80th career win. Tim Slade, a 2nd and a 3rd result yesterday. Jason Bright to start alongside Tim on the 2nd row. Shane Van Gisbergen and David Reynolds, 2 young men with a lot of speed and massive futures in this game. Stevie Johnson's had 2 top 10 finishes so far this weekend. Fabian Coulthard, a good qualifying performance. The best qualifying performance of the season for car 39, the enforcer Russell Ingall. And Will Davison starts in 10th spot. 2 top 10s also for James Moffat, who's really making a bit of a statement here at his home test track. Rick Kelly, just 1 spot short of the podium in both sprint races. There's Jonathan Webb and Steve Owen for VIP Pet Foods. Behind them, it's Michael Caruso and Alex Davison. Michael just hasn't got a handle on this one so far this weekend. Alex Davison tied up in a few incidents yesterday. Jason Bargwanna and Dean Fiore, the same for Bargs, a few tangles. Garth Tander didn't even know it, but this is his 400th championship career race. He starts from 19th position and Mark Winterbottom is next to him. There's Greg Murphy, 6th and 7th yesterday. James Courtney's just trying to piece together this season as he hands over his title that he claimed so convincingly last year. Paul Dumbrell and Carl Reiner. And we get to the rear of the grid, you're going to find Todd Kelly and Warren Luff. What about the list of damage from Todd Kelly's car? I'm going to run out of time. Front bar, rear bar, radiator, oil cooler, power stump, power steering pump, water pump, front and inner guards, air intake and housing, fuel assembly, the Watts assembly, the boot, and that's only about the half of it. So they've really had a big job at Kelly Brothers Racing to piece together car 7. Larko?
Mate, I don't know if I can go on listening after all of that, Matt. Fantastic. Okay, let's have a quick snapshot of the race facts. This is race number 18 of 28 in the championship. Laps today, 65 lap race, which is 200 kilometres in distance. Still using a 75 litre fuel cell. Fuel usage around here, about 2.6 litres per lap. Okay, that's going to give us a fuel range of somewhere in the sort of 26, 28, call it 27 laps total. Critical lap number will be lap number 37, meaning that's the earliest you'll be able to pit and make it home on a tank of fuel. So there's a couple of ways you can approach this race. Not a bad way to do it, because we talked a lot about tyre degradation here. So you could actually, obviously use our fuel cell, fill him up, start, run that far into the race until you get a nice fill up of fuel here. Now that's exactly 12 seconds, which is a tyre stop and a bit of fuel. Run again, another 12 seconds worth of fuel here, and that'll get you all the way through to the end. What that does, splits your race into 3 nice equal segments, very good for tyre degradation. Now, with a bit of this weather around, another good way to approach this might be, and we've seen this done a lot this year, is maybe use your safety car or pit early. So you run from full, get about 9 laps in, and fill the car right up. Now, that gives you a lot of flexibility, doesn't it? Then you run him right down near empty, come in and fill him right up. Now, remember, that's our magic lap 37 we spoke about, and that'll get you through to the end. Now, we're seeing that work very successfully this year, but if I walk out here and I look up in the sky and the clouds coming this way, everything I've just showed you might go right out the window.
Larko, thanks for that. And while you were doing that, Jamie Whincup had a problem getting this car away, and even in the background while you were talking, that car was running rough, quite rough then, Mark, like it was on 7 cylinders.
Have a look at the car. When they go to get off the line, he parks there. It's like he can't get it started to get away. It's stalled, he can't get it going. So the other guys have gone around him, and then he trickles all the way down here.
He's sort of
So he's got a throttle.
turn 2.
He's got a throttle drama. He's reporting to Mark Dutton.
Yeah, now there's an auto start function in some of the cars where they can...
No, he's in. It's a bad miss. This is championship changing stuff now, with a series leader coming in with a serious engine problem.
Stay out the front, guys. Fix it out the front.
So there's going to be a position vacant on the front row of the grid.
They had an engine drama here last year, if you recall. It's rare, but that was a reliability thing. This is something else. Car sounds terrible as it goes past the commentary point, Barretts.
Yeah, Neil, you were spot on. Adrian Burgess just confirmed they have a throttle problem with Jamie Whincup's car. They're going to fix it out here in the lane, but time is ticking.
Well, he got down to turn 1, slowly, mind you, and then he was whacking the throttle hardly while we were having a chat to Larko. Whincup was really working hard on the throttle, so another drama for the championship leader. Remember, he's only got 170 points lead, and the man who's chasing him now has nobody at home next door from the front row of the grid. Craig Lowndes. Is this the weekend that Lowndes' charge towards another title begins? He's certainly well and truly on track now. So Lowndes will lead them down to turn 1. Slade slots in. Good start from David Reynolds.
Great start from Davey Reynolds, and out wide and really struggling there was Will Davis, and Lee Holdsworth rotated at turn 1. He grabs it before it gets bogged. Not good when you're out in the weeds there and cold tyres at the start.
This is not over. This is... Here we go, straight down into turn 3. We see drama here all the time, and you just stand back, you think there's got to be contact. There's always a concertina, and they get through remarkably. And here's Whincup out of the pits. So starting from the back of the grid, he'll be banking on a safety car now at some point in this race as Lowndes leads from Slade, from Reynolds. Great start, Dave Reynolds. Jason Bright, Shane Van Gisbergen. That's your top 5. It's pretty busy in mid-pack there.
Clearly, we were focused on what was going on out here, but I could hear in the background there was an enormous amount of aggravation and stress at Team Vodafone. I think they actually squirted a bit of fuel into it as well, but he can recover from this. 200 kilometres an hour if there's a safety car. Right now it looks dreadful, but we'll keep an eye on Whincup later in the day.
The chance of a safety car here over the years is about, since we've been coming here, is about 70% over the course of those races. So he'll be hoping that today is one of those. As you see Murphy with Bargwanna right up behind him. Michael Caruso, Jonathan Webb, very close company through turn 2. Big run wide there was James Courtney.
Greg Murphy's already made up 6 spots in the first lap of this race, so he is on a charge as we ride with Mark Winterbottom on the inside of Jonathan Webb. Also
picked up on the back channel that there may be Some discussion taking place at the moment for Whincup in relation to pit lane speeding. Bang, Caruso and Bargwana. Heavy contact at 4. It's been a wild start to this one. They know that they've got to grab track position while they can. Lowndes, fastest standing lap. Got a margin.
Actually a pretty impressive first lap to be 0.8 of a second faster than anybody else. And the next lap slightly quicker again than Tim Slade. But as we said, David Reynolds a very good start. Jason Bright a strong performance to maintain a good qualifying position. Van Gisbergen and Johnson. Coulthard also jumped a couple of spots. Russell Ingall, good performance, also 8th. Rick Kelly and Will Davison. Here's the start.
Watch Davey.
And that's a great start from the outside. Dave Reynolds pulls across to the inside and makes ground on Slade down to the first corner and takes that position from Jason Bright. Van Gisbergen sneaks under the inside of Coulthard, and that's the contact between Fiore and Holdsworth. He rotates again. He'll be another guy looking for a safety car, and that was a big moment. That was the one we called. Will Davison right out in the boonies, and he did well not to get bogged.
I think he had contact again with the Jim Beam car. He did yesterday, but I'm just not 100% sure who it was. Black flag for speeding in pit lane for Jamie Whincup. So his day gets worse.
You're kidding.
So car number 88, Team Vodafone, black flag. You'll have to tour the lane again.
And
Lane, mate, we have to come through the pit lane.
Okay, so he's come in. Now just see whether he clicks the... Yeah, he was a little late with clicking the speed limiter, so he's actually overrun the start of the pit lane and been caught at the first radar, which is essentially as soon as you come into the pit lane. So what a day. It's a cruel sport, isn't it? You have an engine drama or a throttle problem on the line, and then you come into pit lane and get pinged.
Winterbottom here down in 18th. This is Jonathan Webb in the Mother Energy Falcon in front. Turn 3. Lowndes got nearly a second margin now. There's Whincup touring the lane. He'll get out before the leaders, so he'll stay on the lead lap.
That was exactly what the issue is, isn't it, Neil? It's not going to be by a great deal.
I might have to eat my words here. I'm not 100% sure whether he will squeeze out. No, he'll be okay.
Will. Yep, only just hang him ahead at the front of the commentary box, and he's out by probably a couple 100 metres, so he'll be pressing on now. Man.
Did you have your tongue out?
No, I didn't. I just wanted to see. I was very interested in it, Neil.
like a dog out the side of your window.
Stop it.
He loves having the breeze in his hair, doesn't he?
God.
Shane Van Gisbergen 5th. Has got Stephen Johnson on his tail. So the order is this: Lowndes and Slade at the top. David Reynolds, then Jason Bright, Shane Van Gisbergen, Stephen Johnson, Russell Ingall, Coulthard, Rick Kelly and Will Davison, all inside the top 10.
One comment. Blokes are cruel. This will be a good battle because Van Gisbergen has been strong over the weekend. Steve Johnson's done a good job, and also for the first time we've seen Russell Ingall qualify up near the pointy end, and we always say that he races well. So these are 3 local cars, do a lot of laps of this place, and they should today, in terms of consistency, be 3 of the better runners. In front of them are the 2 Victorian cars, Dave Reynolds and Jason Bright, only just 3 or 4 car lengths up the road.
Guys, we're trying to get to the bottom of what happened with Jamie Whincup, and what they've done is when they've opened up the engine area on the top of the air filter, they pulled the top off, reached inside. There is a black cover, a black piece of material with Vodafone on it, which is sucked into the top of the trumpets. It's the trumpet cover that protects that area, Mark Larkham, and it appears as though they've accidentally left it in there, and it has cost Jamie Whincup dearly.
Mate, you've got eagle eyes, Brett. You've done very, very well. What happens a lot of the times on the pit lane here, because punters and people with cameras can actually see right into the engines, people, they try and hide them. They make little cover. So I just wonder if you're right. There's a little cover on there. I think you said it had Vodafone written on it.
Yeah, they've tossed it out of the engine onto the ground, and then one of the guys has picked it up and wished it out the back very quickly. But for the number 1 team, that is a major trip up.
Well, that's finger trouble, which is that's the one that teams really hate. Occasionally stuff will break. Weird things will happen, but if that's what it sounds like, then that man there, Roland Dane, team principal, will be absolutely livid that that's been left in place. It's a cover to stop the engine ingesting any garbage when it's in transit between the lane. But we'll wait and confirm that. But certainly going to be a very, very difficult afternoon now for Whincup. And this is why things can swing quickly. That 170-point margin that Matt White mentioned earlier can turn around so fast.
Well, if it ends up the way it is right now, Craig Lowndes gets another 150 in the bank, and Jamie's right down the other end. So that lead will evaporate very quickly. But we're only on lap 7 out of 65.
That was on board with Steve Johnson. Sorry, that was James Moffat in behind Steve Owen, and these guys have been doing a good job also through the weekend.
I guarantee you that Russell is going to race well in this race. His car's good, he's pretty happy, he's good at the longer distance events, and he has traditionally been one of those that fires at Queensland Raceway. Watch for him later in this encounter. Lowndes has got a margin just over half a second. Long way to go.
That's the view on our mega wall here at Queensland Raceway. Thankfully, no activity yet in race control. Everything's out on the track. Craig Lowndes leading the way. Dick Johnson racing, keeping a watchful brief on the monitors. Different story at Team Vodafone, because at this stage of the race, they've got one guy leading and one guy bringing up the tail. Extraordinary chain of events at the start of this race. Here's James Moffat looking back to Garth Tander, who's in the last lap or so has had a pretty rigorous battle with his former teammate Will Davison. They won Bathurst together a couple of years ago. They were side by side coming up the main straight just a couple of laps ago. And Garth has dropped Will, and looks as though Greg Murphy's got in between Will and Garth.
Hearing more guys on average across the field moaning about the balance of their cars and the behaviour of the rear tyres, and just wondering whether the wash for the track condition overnight and then subsequently a couple of times during the day, and the fact that yesterday in sprint mode they didn't have to run a full fuel load. Today they've got to run a full fuel load. So I reckon the combined effects of the variation in the track and more weight is actually hurting a few guys out there that might have balance issues. I mean, if you're using the average that Mark Larkham gave us before, 2.6 litres a lap of the sucrogen bioethanol that the cars run on, 22 laps yesterday, only needed 60 odd litres in the car to get the job done. Today you got double that. I think it's having an effect.
Okay, Neil, I might just try, and the dust has sort of settled here in Triple Eight, I might just try and grab Roland Dane, the team principal. He's probably the appropriate bloke to ask. Roland, sorry to interfere. I didn't want to put you boys on the spot. We've just been conjecturing because Beretta had eagle eyes, saw what he thought was a trumpet cover, may have been accidentally left on. I mean, that happens. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it did happen.
You're not happy?
I'm not happy.
Okay, mate.
Those things happen, and you know we'll get on with it now. But yeah, it did happen. It's not a good thing.
All right, mate. I can see you're not happy. Thanks very much for the update.
No worries.
Well, we appreciate the fact that Roland's been frank with us there, and he's just stating the truth. So thank you for that, Roland Dane, team principal for Team Vodafone. So admitting to a rare mistake, those sorts of things typically don't happen, especially in an outfit like that. They pride themselves on structure and discipline. But it's very, very difficult in a high-pressure environment like this to stitch together 365 mistake-free days in a big unit of people.
Slade's taken some ground off Craig Lowndes there. It's 0.8 of a second behind. And you can use the guide of yesterday's races as the 22 laps were 10 or 11 laps were halfway into what was a stint for the racing yesterday. And you got a bit of a feel, and I'm sure that Tim Slade would have learnt some in terms of the experience following Lowndes yesterday, learnt some important lessons in terms of how hard you can drive the car and how you need to be very, very straight on the exits of these corners. It's so hard on the left-hand rear tyre. As we see a pretty healthy battle going on with Courtney and Winterbottom way down in 19th and 20th position. So what will happen now is I'll try to read this tyre condition based on yesterday's experience. But as Neil said, when the circuit is washed, all the rubber that normally lays in the sediment of the tar tends to be, now it's cleaned out, and the tar is harsher on the tyre. So for sure, today's tyre degradation will be higher than yesterday.
These battles we saw yesterday in the field too, Mark, these intense midfield battles where Mark Winterbottom said this morning in conversation that, you know, he worked so hard yesterday at one point to pluck out a 10th position, and you know, you're racing vigorously looking for every last bit of performance, but it's not enough to give you a front of the field yield. But don't for a minute think that they're not trying just because they're further down the order. That is not the case. In fact, if anything, it's the opposite.
What's also happening is that the two Victorian cars that we said before in third and fourth with Dave Reynolds and Jason Bright, who've made such impressive starts, they're coming back to Shane Van Gisbergen, Steve Johnson and Russell Ingall at the moment. So this is pretty healthy. This is Courtney trying to do the crisscross on Jonathan Webb. Doesn't quite get it done, but he'll be looking. So what you do down here is you feint left and then you fire right. So he'll just feint across. And he wasn't quite close enough. So you've actually got to just, in terms of gamesmanship, not telegraph the move. You've got to move the car out of the left-hand mirror, make sure they don't see you, and then dive to the right.
James and Jonathan Webb train together. They have a common interest in the trainer who looks after them. So when they have their midweek coffee, they'll be able to both debrief heavily on the behaviour of each other and their cars.
On board now with Ingall. As we said, he races well. He's being reasonably patient here as he follows Steve Johnson. Russell Ingall is in 7th position.
Lowndes has a half a second break over Tim Slade. They continue to do the job that they did yesterday. The big question will be, can the youngster Slade today get that first race win?
Here at Supercheap Auto, we love the V8 Supercars just as much as you guys. That's why we're not leaving the race, even in our own commercial break. So enjoy the race and get into Supercheap Auto for everything auto and much, much more.
Mark Winterbottom continues to chip away at Jonathan Webb here. This is for 19th spot. This is how intense this battle is. Special mention further up the list to Garth Tander, who started in 19th. He's up to 12th. A 7-spot gain for Garth in 14 laps.
So in that brief pause, Courtney's been able to clear Webb, and now Winterbottom looks as though he's got a little bit more pace than Jonathan Webb at the moment as well. So we'll just keep a bit of an eye on this one.
And Slade's taken more ground off Lowndes. He's only 0.57 of a second now. So he's 3 or 4 tenths closer to Craig. So Craig Lowndes, Tim Slade, Dave Reynolds, Jason Bright, Shane Van Gisbergen, Steve Johnson, Russell Ingall, Fabian Coulthard, Rick Kelly and Steve Owen is your top 10. Then Moffat, Tander, as Matt said, has made massive ground, and so has Greg Murphy. They've both made 7 positions and 8 positions respectively.
Meantime, Jamie Whitcup 61 seconds behind the leader. Mark Dutton said, use your tyres up, use them up. It's a floating strategy. We'll react as we see different things happen. Jamie wants a roll centre tweak when he gets the car back in. But Mark Dutton's main focus at the moment for Jamie is we do not want to be lapped.
Neil, it's an interesting one. You and I spoke about it earlier. I mean, I look out on the track, I see several gaggles of cars holding some, some of them being held up in terms of lap speed, and we thought someone would pop out of that and go for an alternate strategy. So I'm a little surprised because you've really got to trade up. You can see now guys are going to split this race into 3 and try and get equal degradation across 3 tyre sets. But you've got to really weigh that up against being held up in traffic, and it's really mathematics at the end of the day.
How's this? Todd Kelly got past Paul Dumbrell at turn 1. Paul Dumbrell got it back at turn 3. Coming up to turn 4, Todd's got it back off Paul. And by the way, these guys are 22nd and 23rd out there. Back to Jonathan Webb and Mark Winterbottom. You'd have to say at any stage, Frosty is going to get this job done to try and get inside the top 20. Stephen Johnson is the first man to go into pit lane.
Just got him out. He just pulled it up. He had to pinball off the side of it. He was so close to the back of Jonathan's car that it was buffeting the wiper on the screen. He dive bombed him, got it done. Now Fiore up on the outside and also puts a move on Jonathan Webb. Here's Stephen Johnson in.
So this is the first strategy that we've seen developed in this race. Mark Larkham just referred to it. This is the earliest stop, turning the strategy on its head the other way. We often talk about this. And there might be a couple of guys in a similar position in terms of their tyre and the way that it's working, because these guys have swapped around, and this is the passing manoeuvre at turn 1 for Jason Bright down the inside of young Dave Reynolds. Good manoeuvre.
Looks strong at the moment, Bright. 11-1 last lap with the traffic. Lowndes on a 10-6, Slade second on a 10-7. Yes, it all just chained together.
Yeah. It's extraordinary to see them work so hard to get a position, like you were saying, that Winterbottom was saying. You know, he just had to really do everything he could just to get inside the top 10 yesterday. He's working even harder today to get inside the top 20, and that goes for quite a few guys. So the gap here, half a second between Craig Lowndes, two-time race winner yesterday, and Tim Slade.
Yeah, just see Tim. He actually is pushing on at the moment because over the bumps into turn 3, he had it dancing on the rear brake in there. He's not mucking about.
Neil, the great Dick Johnson tells me their strategy for bringing Steve in early is they're getting better tyre life than anyone else. So they want to do a long stint in the middle here. Then they've got 4 green tyres to come on when they stop the next time around.
And when they did stop then, Barrett's, I'm pretty certain of the fact they only did rear tyres on the 17 Jim Boom racing car.
David Reynolds is under attack again, but this time from Shane Van Gisbergen. So he's already surrendered 3rd place to Jason Bright. And now the Kiwi wants a piece of the Stratco Commodore.
And this is what David was saying this morning when we were talking, was the qualifying performance was obviously very, very good, but the way it uses its tyres versus these cars in the lead pack is just not good enough. It uses the tyre too hard. He's going backwards, and he needs to come in and do a similar thing to Steve Johnson. You need to make an early stop and make an adjustment to this car, or it'll haunt you all day. In the meantime, Garth Tander's gone off the road, and he lost a spot there to Greg Murphy. Made a little mistake. He's complaining about front grip in the Toll Holden Racing Team car. They're in 11th and 12th.
Early days in this race, but look at the amount of rubber debris building up off the race line on the left and the right there. The chunks all over the place.
You wouldn't want to be wide, would you? Especially at turn 2. It's a pretty professional run also for Van Gisbergen. They've been talking to him, coaching him through this first phase of the race, saying, how hard do you want to go? You read it. This is a good pass now down the inside at turn 4 on Dave Reynolds, so that puts him into 4th position. But he hasn't been using the car as hard as Tim Slade or Craig Lowndes. So Lowndes and Slade have been pretty much 3/4 of a second faster than the next group of Bright, Van Gisbergen and Reynolds.
Scapey, this is a hard one with Davey Reynolds, isn't he? I mean, he's talented over 1 lap and the car suits him there, but this is one of those really unusual circumstances, but it's real, where the driver and his engineer have got to develop a relationship, and I reckon they're going to have to help each other here, because some of it will be about giving him the car that he needs, but I reckon some of it will be, Dave, you've got to drive the car a little different over a race distance.
That's very true, Larko, and I've actually sort of spoken to him about it, because sometimes it's been in traffic, as we see Rick Kelly come in for his stop. Sometimes he positions himself not quite well enough. He's not conservative enough. He gets caught up in too many traffic dramas. And other times he drives the car too hard and hurts the back tyre.
So 3 cars in the lane there, all 4 tyres going on the Jack Daniels Racing entry for Rick Kelly. Steve Owens, the other car, masked behind the gantry there at the moment, and that's Michael Caruso in the foreground.
I don't know why Steve Johnson would have only put two tyres on that car, because when you've got to put so much fuel in it, and for the little gap that you have, and with a soft tyre especially, put 4 on it. I mean, I just don't get that strategy. And there's Whincup. We've seen his dramas unfold so far. There's Rick Kelly, there's Steve Owen coming out. Michael Caruso also.
Jamie's only made a couple of seconds on the leader. Craig Lowndes, he's 59.8 seconds in it. I remember saying it was 61 seconds a few laps back. So he's rocking around at good pace relative to the guy leading the race, this man. But it's all happening at the wrong end of the field. You never know how that'll pan out later, particularly if we get a Pettis safety car.
And this bit of traffic may help Tim Slade in this case, because Lowndes had taken the lead out to close to 1.5 seconds as Tander comes in. But now Lowndes has got traffic in front of him, so that should allow Slade to get a little bit closer.
Yeah, I think Tim made a mistake, actually, Matty. That's 8/10 of a second back out there, so he's made a little blue. We saw him trying pretty hard, and you might as well try hard in the last little sector of these tyres. Mightn't you, Neil? You might as well press on and use them all.
So this is interesting. We're seeing more people adopting a moderate sort of mid-range strategy here of equally distancing the run on their tyres. Obviously, there are a few of them here. Moffat, Tander, Winterbottom, Fiore, Holdsworth, D'Alberto, they're all in. This is Winterbottom.
I think you find, there it is. I'm just about to say, I think you find Craig Lowndes will be in now, and that's the spot right there.
And Slade comes with him. He made ground.
Made a lot of ground. And that's the fortunate piece to be the car behind, because the radar can't get you when you're the car behind.
Get a little gain there.
You certainly do. You used to do that all the time. You've always ducked those radars, don't you?
Silence is gold.
You're the master of no comment, which is good for a commentator.
I just wanted to listen to all the wonderful effects in the pit lane. So let's see how they play this. Team Vodafone versus Lucky 7 Racing and Stone Brothers. 4 tyres.
As soon as you see it, get off, please, as per committee's orders. First gear for me, please. We're all done here. Good to go, good to go, good to go.
And there's the gap. Lowndes got a little bit of margin back, just a bit.
Yeah, I think you'll find it'll be quite a lot. And drama at turn 3 with Dave Reynolds, D'Alberto and Fiore.
So remember, Tony D'Alberto just came out of pit lane here. So David Reynolds has come into traffic and he's tagged, has he just? Well, it's 3 wide here. Fiore on the outside, Caruso on the inside. Is that Holdsworth? And where does it come unstuck?
A bit further down the road.
So it is Lee. Here it goes. That's a big tag too.
It's all a bit weird now, because David is second in the race.
Well, it was actually a really good bit of driving from Dave Reynolds to get in and around those 2 guys at turn 1 as they all come out of the pits. And then Dean has turned him around at the end there. So I think you'll find that Dean will be doing a little drive through the pit lane very soon. There's Courtney in. There's Will Davison in. So Jason Bright currently leads from Alex Davison and Jason Bargwanna, but that was very strange. It was high intensity coming out of the pit, but then 2 corners later, Fiore has given Dave Reynolds a turnaround.
Mirror, 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 mirror. Okay, retyres are done, mate. Retyres are done.
Looked like a fairly healthy whack too, in car 16, but it doesn't appear to have upset him too much. Let's see where he comes out relative to the race leader, effective race leader, which is Lowndes, of course.
Well, he was near Van Gisbergen, if you recall, just before the stop, so he's actually lost that big chunk of margin there from Van Gisbergen, who's coming out of turn 2, and there's Dave Reynolds now, so he's probably lost 200 metres.
Slade on new tyres has done a very good split to the end of the first sector. Here's David, serviced back out, 14th at the moment, the Stratco Racing Commodore. There are 4 at the top of the field that have not yet stopped. Jason Bright, Alex Davison, who now stops, Jason Bargwanna, who now stops, make that 2, and Carl Reindler. So 2 from the Brad Jones Racing stable are still out there, and Jamie Whincup's still out there, so he'll continue to bolt. They're going to run him right down to the bottom of the fuel load. Tim Slade's gone on with that lap. Jason Bargwanna serviced in the Jana Living entry from Warragul.
Stall.
Couldn't keep the fire alive there. In fact, it doesn't want to restart, does it?
Doesn't sound like it, does it? Just struggled for battery life then to get that one cranked.
Tim Slade's just done the fastest lap of the race, a 1:10.61.
And then when you look at the gap, there, Matt, he's actually 3 seconds behind Craig Lowndes. So we saw him come in right behind Lowndes. We saw him go out with an extended lead, and Lowndes probably had what we thought was 150 or 200 metres gap, and that's turned into a 3-second gap.
The fastest lap of yesterday's race was done by Jamie Whincup on a 10.7, so that time that Tim Slade's done is the best we've seen this weekend in race conditions.
Not far off the lap record either of James Courtney set last year.
10.58 last year, wasn't it? So 10.61, 300ths of a second slower than last year's fastest lap so far. As the race goes on, you'll see cars go faster after these stops, and Whincup will be a lap behind here, won't he? Because based on what he did before, he will be lucky to get out as we see Slade and Lowndes. There's Lowndes. We'll just see how that correlates.
He might be okay.
Will he? I thought he might get gobbled up in that. Where is he? Let's try to find him. Is he?
He's on the way down the back straight, so he's about 500 metres in front of Craig Lowndes at the moment. Here he is, trying to warm those tyres up, and Craig will be negotiating the gap between turns 1 and 2. So he's still on the lead lap. He's made some good gains here. Now, interestingly, Jason Bright and Phil Keaty's engineer, often the masters of the alternate strategy. They do play the numbers game from time to time, so they're kind of doing the opposite to just about everybody else at the moment. They're going to run into the pit lane right now.
Pit lane is what you're about to say, because Jason Bright has just entered pit lane halfway through that sentence, spoken and authorised by Neil Crompton. So that leaves Carl Reindler, the only one yet to pit. I can say that safely. There he is.
You can guarantee it, can't you?
So Bright comes in. Lowndes regains control of the race. Reindler still yet to pit. It's still on between Lowndes and Slade at the front.
Clear exit, just waiting on fuel. Go, good work. Reset fuel, please. Reset fuel.
still haven't reached the halfway mark of race 18 of the championship.
Great pace, at least 14 or 15 laps on the tyres minimum.
That's Mark Dutton in pit lane talking to Jamie Whincup, who is responding the only way he knows how, and talk about a response after failing to be at the start because of a throttle problem, then getting a pit lane penalty for speeding. He's come out and delivered the 2 fastest laps of the race and broken the lap record twice. It used to be 1:10.58 set by James Courtney last year. It's now 1:10.16, so Whincup is doing his best to try and pick up some points.
I reckon there's a bit of steam blowing off here. He'd be pretty angry with what's gone on. A double whack at the start. If you weren't with us at the beginning of our coverage, they left an engine trumpet cover on it under the airbox in the car, so they had to bring it in after the warm-up lap, remove that, send him. Then because when he came in too hot, too fast, he broke the pit lane speed limit, so he got another tour through the pit lane. And he's still now 59.8 seconds off the lead of the race, so he's been making gains, but it's an elastic band at the moment that he desperately needs a safety car. He's got a very fast car, clearly, and they changed it in the stop, by the way. They did make a rear roll centre adjustment on that car, so it's looking after this set of tyres better and running quicker than it did earlier. What we want to do now is show you the gaps between everybody. Here's our race leader, Craig Lowndes. There's Tim Slade, watching brief. Jason Bright, virtually the length of the main straight behind. And then it's Stephen Johnson, Shane Van Gisbergen, and then it starts to get busier in the pack. Rick Kelly, James Moffat, Steve Owen, Fabian Coulthard, David Reynolds, who really came out poorly from that contact with Fiore, Tander, Ingle, Caruso, Murphy, Alex Davison. In fact, they're Murphy and Caruso swapping spots there at the moment. Then Alex, there he is, James Courtney. He's been on the radio debriefing on his car. Winterbottom, Todd Kelly, Lee Holdsworth, Will Davison in his brand new car, Dean Fiore going into the pit lane in the background, Tony D'Alberto, Paul Dumbrell, the Botlow entry, Jonathan Webb, Warren Luff, and that's Carl Reindler. So that's the entire field. Now,
the back, Whincup and Bargwanna.
That's right. So it's still just a little under 1 minute from Craig Lowndes to Jamie Whincup. The other thing that I think you've got to be really careful in this caper trying to pick weather, but I think it's going to be a talking point before the race is done. It's just got a feeling that weather could be a factor as well. The radar's alive to the southeast with some weather cells, and there's quite a distinct colour change down there, and the flags are indicating it's gone southeasterly again. We had a period maybe half an hour ago where it was more easterly, even northeasterly.
So the bad weather all day has been coming from the southeast, and it's coming at a rate of knots. The other guy that has been hurt in the pit stop strategy in segment 1 of the race is Russell Ingle, who was up into 7th or 8th, has dropped back to 12th position behind Tander.
Van Gisbergen here, very, very close to the back of Stephen Johnson. Remember, Stephen didn't change front tyres. They only changed rears on his car, so I'm guessing that he might be lacking a little bit in turn with that car at the moment. Still holding a very good track position in 4th, but Van Gisbergen's looking racy.
Junior was the first one in on lap 15. Most of the field came in on lap 20.
So the age of the rear tyres themselves are older anyway in Stephen's case, so he's hurting to the tune of more mileage, 15 odd kilometres more.
And what some of the guys will do is they'll make this middle stint as Van Gisbergen gets up the inside of Steve Johnson. He'll have a little look, no, maybe not quite close enough, but he'll be trying to get a run through turn 1 over those bumps we keep on referring to. Van Gisbergen uses a late apex at 1. Have a look now. This is on board with Moffat.
So a bit of rain on the screen of James's car.
Yeah, exactly.
He's doing a good job, James. Just first year in the main game, he's always a real wake-up call. Here comes Shane Van Gisbergen looking. He's launched it nicely over the bump, and this time he gets it done, and he may take Rick Kelly with him.
And that's the front tyre grip that you were talking about. What I was saying is, I think that some of the guys may actually use the middle stint to get to that critical number that Mark Larkham spoke about as a reasonably short stint, and that may be why Steve Johnson. That's why I thought it was a bit of a strange... Oh, a little bump there with Moffat and Rick Kelly. Oh, very close at turn 5. We saw a big accident there yesterday. That was very close to unloading Rick Kelly. In fact, Rick Kelly did that manoeuvre on Jamie Whincup yesterday. Both got away with it. Lucky James didn't make contact there because he's been showing really good form. He's in 7th position, and with Steve Johnson just ahead with, as we said, with used front tyres, you would think that Rick Kelly and James Moffat will probably have better speed in the concluding part of this next segment of the race. I think this decision to put only 2 tyres in the car will hurt Steve Johnson.
We saw yesterday when we were on board with James, he had the car working well at turn 2. He was able to pick up the throttle nice and early. He was very effective with a quicker corner exit speed in the braking area. Then when he got down here to turn 3, he's got that car working well at the moment. In fact, he's going to give his own teammates some hurry up shortly.
Yeah, he certainly will.
So it's a good opening account in his first full year of main game competition for James Moffat. Here he is up the inside of Rick Kelly. Oh, no.
Gee, he was close to taking his teammate with him then. Very close.
A bit too wild. Now he's going to have a bit of dirt on the tyres here as well. He's got to be careful.
It always borders.
Dropped him back to 10th.
It always borders on the level of aggression, doesn't it, Neil? You know, you've got to be aggressive because this is the field of the arguably as good, if not the best, touring car drivers in the world. And you've got to, you know, in your first year, go and do a good job. But at the same time, you've got to stay out of strife.
Garth Tander's watching all that unfold in front of him and is ready to pounce any second and move into the top 10 and continue his charge further up.
I think I heard Russell Ingall talking about a flat spotted tyre earlier as well. Here's the replay. It was a pretty big lunge, and that was millimetres from grabbing his teammate Stephen Johnson. That would have been a fun debrief. So here it is again, just way too deep, just too ambitious. Ended up having so much brake pressure on, he stopped everything. He clipped the front of Malcolm Swettenham, the team manager in the middle there. Got the calculator and on the radio.
And he needed to be more patient then, Cropper.
No doubt.
I mean, James was in a position, he was in 7th. Rick Kelly was going towards Steve Johnson. Steve Johnson will be the one that'll come back in this segment of the race, and he needed to be more patient. His speed was good enough to be in the back of that top 5. Oh, Tander, a big understeer in the middle of the corner. Battling for front grip, runs wide, and Ingall looms up onto the back of the Toll HRT car. You can see there's the Super Cheap car right in behind.
Look how hard the cars are working over the bumps there into one.
So this is a pretty healthy group, this one, with Lowndes, Slade and Bright clear. Shane Van Gisbergen, who we saw get by Steve Johnson, so he's escaped. Steve Johnson will very soon be caught by Dave Reynolds, who's rounded up Rick Kelly, Steve Owen, Fabian Coulthard, James Moffat and Garth Tander and Russell Ingall on screen.
Incidentally, Whincup remains about 60 seconds off the lead. So he's matching his teammate Craig Lowndes, but he's doing it at the wrong end of the field.
Tander's got some front spoiler damage there. You can see the way that the crease of the front spoiler meets the front guard. Wasn't quite lining up in terms of that gap. So he's obviously, when he went off a little while ago. And that's damaged the front spoiler. As we see Craig Lowndes leading this race, doing a really good job. He has been excellent this weekend. He's driven very well, and so is this young man, Tim Slade. It's not letting him get away. He's 1.9 seconds adrift with Craig Lowndes in 2nd position.
And Scafey, isn't he doing a good job? Let's just stop and reflect. Right? Watch Tim Slade this weekend. Yes, he's got a fast race car. Yes, he's a fast race driver. But as you know, being a complete race driver is much, much more. He's done 3 terrific starts this weekend. I watched him come into the pit lane during that last lot of pit stops. Great entry, nice speed down pit lane. He stopped right on the mark. That's another little trick. When he exited this pit stop, you know how hard it is to get these cars off the lane? He did that really, really well. He went out on cold tyres and matched or bettered Craig Lowndes, the best in the business, on those first few sectors on cold tyres, first couple of laps. It's that sort of stuff is the reason you're going to see this kid around for years to come.
Now, we've jacked up some stuff here to show you what this track's all about. Have a look in replay at just how hard the cars are working. The ride control around this track is one of the big stories about making the cars do the job that they've got to do. Look at the amount of distortion in the tyre. Watch the gap between the front air dam and the road and how it's controlled and how the body reacts to those bumps. That's what engineers have got to work on with their drivers in the debriefs, looking at the data. The local teams have been out here sweating over that throughout the year. It's a big part of making the cars work here.
So Lowndes from Slade, from Bright, from Van Gisbergen, Reynolds, Johnson, Kelly, Owen, Coulthard, Moffat. That's your top 10.
And sorry, now just to add to your comments there, which were good ones, that air dam you see moving to and from the ground, remember that's what makes the downforce at the front of the car. While it's not a lot, it's very, very sensitive. So every time it pulls away from the ground, that changes the amount of downforce. So tuning the car to respond to that is very, very difficult at this particular circuit.
Especially in high-speed sections, Larko. Those two corners we've been referring to with 1 and 2, 150k mid-corner speed. So a little bit of aero difference there makes a big difference to the balance.
So we're going to stay with James Courtney here. Yeah, we had a little problem there with the audio in James's car. So what we want to do is go on board so that you can sit back and crank up the sound, have a listen to this. So we're on board here with James Moffat. Let's do a lap of Queensland Raceway. We also got to see James put a move on. He got past Steve Owen, so Moffat now up to 8th. Rick Kelly's his next target.
Just to complete the sentence, Dean Fiore did get a drive-through for that contact on Dave Reynolds earlier.
Craig Lowndes continues to lead the way as he goes in search of his 80th career win. Welcome back. 26 laps remaining. in the Coates Hire 300, which has been dominated this weekend by Craig Lowndes. It's been a different story for his teammate today, though. Don't forget, Big Pond Sport is the place to go if you need to catch our coverage anytime. The Telstra and XG Mobile will keep you informed thanks to Big Pond Sport.
Now, they just told Tim Slade that somewhere in the next 5 or 6 laps is the maximum he's got to get before they've got to bring him in.
I'll run you through from the start of this race. In fact, before the start of this race, there was a problem on the warm-up lap, the formation lap for Jamie Whincup. It turned out that they left a trumpet cover, which was effectively choking the engine. As he came into pit lane, Barrett's was right on the spot and picked it. As he came into pit lane, he also got picked up by the radar and would have to go through yet again to serve a penalty. So Craig Lowndes started this race with nobody next to him. Tim Slade slotted into second nicely. David Reynolds got the start of the race, but Lee Holdsworth ended up getting spun around down at turn 1. Then later on the rejoin, Reynolds ran straight into traffic and traffic ran straight into him. Dean Fiore gave him a whack. At that stage, David was comfortably inside the top 5, but he's drifted back out and now trying to find his way back in. James Moffat.
My God, that was close.
We've already seen it 3 times, and these guys next to me are still ducking and weaving at how he managed to hold on. Now, James is in 6th. So the order is this. Lowndes by 1.7 seconds ahead of Tim Slade as the next round of pit stop start to take place. Jason Bright is 3rd, then Van Gisbergen, then Reynolds, then Moffat. Rick Kelly is 7th, Steve Owen is 8th, Fabian Coulthard and Alex Davison 10th.
I have to say that Stephen Johnson's tyre performance hung on a little bit better towards the end than I thought there. But they'll put 4 on this time. I reckon there was a flat spot on one of Russell Ingall's tyres. I half intercepted a message earlier. This is a roll centre adjustment for him as well, so they're all trimming their cars. Here's Stephen. 4 brand new Dunlop soft tyres going on.
So the difficult part for these guys is they've been much harder on their tyres than Lowndes or Slade, and they've got to do a longer stint on their tyres than Craig Lowndes. So that was a
He's
jump.
lost ground.
Exactly, a big loss.
Yeah.
Look at all the rubber all over the circuit.
Yeah, so Stephen Johnson's dropped a bunch of spots.
So he must have stayed still for a shorter period of time in the last stop, and he needed more fuel this time. So fill it till you can get home. Oh, big slide there for Bright. Nice car control. So these guys actually temporarily have gone a lap behind based on that, based on Bright, because Bright's in 3rd spot. So Lowndes and Slade will come in this lap.
Is there damage on Paul's
Looks like it, doesn't it?
It's come back on what looked like to be very slowly then.
It's hard to tell because of the black guard over the wheel arch there.
Something weird about it, but something has delayed Paul Dumbrell coming back onto the track at the right pace. Something that looks like at the left rear, but anyway, there's some damage in the drivers and passengers' doors there as well.
There's Slade and Lowndes.
So they've actually ended up bringing Tim in a little bit early. They'll have reacted to Lowndes. They want to keep the leader in sight the whole time. They still had a little bit of extra fuel. Here's the replay of Jason Bright. Mark Scaife called it as great car control it was. We saw Lowndes doing it, so here we go.
Pointing the wrong way down at 3.
Now that suggests there may have been some contact with Warren Luff and Paul Dumbrell, which is interesting because Warren Luff drives for Lucas Dumbrell, and that can be argued about later on.
Well, David Reynolds takes the lead of the race while all of these guys are in pit lane. And it could be a benefit here. It will be a benefit for Tim Slade against Lowndes. Lowndes keeps the lead, but only just.
And now it's exactly yesterday. It's a 22-lap sprint to the end. Just like yesterday's race.
Gee, I tell you what, this young fella here has done an awesome job so far this weekend. You know, and we're not taking anything away from Craig Lowndes, who's on fire at the moment. He's run of pole positions in his race wins, but it's refreshing to see new face up there, and he's just a whisker away from standing on the top spot here at the moment, Tim Slade. I mean, this is after, what is it, 52 minutes and 11 seconds of motor racing, and he's about half a second away from one of the most decorated drivers in this country.
And Neil, I've got to add to it again. I just watched him. He pulled up on the mark, and that's harder to do than it sounds. And as a result of that, the guy's changing the wheels on his car. Have a look how slow that pit stop looks. So it keeps everything well in sync, well under control, exited beautifully again. Top marks.
So we'll finish this round of pit stops and we'll give you a much better guide as to wherever everybody has popped out based on that.
You're spot on about decorated for Craig Lowndes. Just take a look at the career highlights, and especially the last two lines there. 5 Bathurst wins and last year's L&H 500 win. So we're coming into that golden part of the calendar that Lounsey circles at the start of each year.
Just intercepted a message that Bright's got a problem with his car. He's saying something about left rear. I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually let go on him. We saw evidence before of him sliding the car. It might have got to the end of its life. Anyway, he's in. You saw him at the top of the lane. It's at the northern end of the lane.
So in terms of how this race will shape up in the next couple of laps, Alex Davison and James Courtney are the only two who haven't stopped, who are in front of the effective leaders, Lowndes and Slade. So we'll wait for those two to come in. This race then will cleanse itself, and we will have a good feel for where we already know that Tim Slade's not far from Craig Lowndes, but we'll also work out where Shane Van Gisbergen, Dave Reynolds and the rest of the guys will. I'm just looking down the leaderboard at the moment. Yes, so Alex Davison coming in. James Courtney, as I said, will be one of the key guys. You can see Alex Davison there on your left-hand side in the Irwin Tools Falcon.
That's the gap at the lead. Lowndes v Slade. It's effectively 1.3 seconds, so it's pretty much exactly the same as what it was just before they went into pit lane.
Yeah, as they came out, Tim was actually markedly closer, but...
Stop opposition. 21 to go. Look after the tyres. Make sure you get to the end.
Jeremy Moore just counselling Craig. So this is James Courtney. What a tough moment for the reigning champion to just have to stay wide and concede, be a lap down. So this is a problem here for Jason Bright. Remember, we called him coming in. Now the Go-Jacks being placed beneath that car. So what a shame. This had great pace in it, this car. He's been driving it well.
And if you think Craig Lowndes' motivation wasn't high, he's just on the fastest first sector of the race to stamp some authority on this race with Tim Slade behind. He's trying to extend this gap. We see Whincup go back out. He's had a shocking day so far. Following Mark Winterbottom, there's Holdsworth. Will Davison just coming up behind him.
Unless he gets a safety car, Jamie Whincup is destined at the end of this to be huffing and puffing for very little in the way of reward. So I was going to make the point a little earlier that Lowndes in this last couple of laps since they went back out has actually eased the margin back out again over Tim Slade. This is so disappointing for Jason Bright and everybody at Team BOC. So it's more than just a little bit of tyre damage. In fact, something looks weird with that left rear.
It does, yeah. It looks
it's
like
it's got a positive camber and an angle on it. So not right at the rear. So they need to sort that out. And I suggest that whatever that is that's going on back there is going to have him parked, if not permanently, then for a larger chunk of this race.
One of the things that's assisted Lowndes in extending that gap in the last lap or so is that Tim Slade ended up with traffic in front of him. For the first time in a long time, there was somebody in between Craig Lowndes and Tim Slade this weekend, and it was James Courtney, who is yet to come in for his second stop. So it took Slade about a half a lap to get around car number 1 and resume the chase for car 888. Back we go. Russell Ingall, 9th. Now Courtney is coming in. You're looking out the back of the Enforcers Super Cheap auto entry to Stephen Johnson in 10th.
James Courtney there, so just one car remaining. It was the last car to pit in the last sequence as well, and that's Carl Reindler. So Whincup has made a bit of ground here, but he's still roughly a minute off the lead of the race, but he's now battling with Mark Winterbottom, or looking to battle with him. So look at this, the two Jim Beam racing cars line astern.
And I've got to say in this race that James Moffat looks quite speedy. He's done a really good job We commented earlier, maybe we shouldn't actually compliment him again, because after we complimented him, he had a drama. But he actually looks like he's got better speed than his teammate in this sector of the race. He'll have to get down here. He looks like he's going to have a lunge. Yeah, and he gets it done. Well done, James Moffat. Nice, clean pass. Steve gave him some room on the entry. And James will now hook onto the back of Russell Ingall. We said earlier that he races well. He'll want to get on with this now.
He did a good job in recovery.
He did.
After he had that little stoush down at turn 4, James Moffat made a weird error down there. He came back and got all that ground back again. So he does have pace in the car at the moment.
So the race has cleansed. It's Jason Bargwanna moving over for Tim Slade. Tim Slade is 1.27 seconds, so he's taken some time out of Craig Lowndes in the last couple of laps. Shane Van Gisbergen, David Reynolds, Garth Tander, Fabian Coulthard, Russell Ingall, James Moffat, Steve Johnson. That's your top 10. So Van Gisbergen, although he's been up and reasonably competitive, has lost a huge amount of time to Tim Slade. He's 26 seconds behind Tim Slade.
Yeah.
So that's a long margin, isn't it? That's a big break from cars 1 and 2 in the race to 3 and 4, Van Gisbergen and Reynolds. And this is Moffat right up behind Ingall, one of the youngest and most inexperienced drivers in the field against the most experienced. Ingall does the crisscross. He'll be on the outside for turn 4, and Moffat will be on the inside. And he gets it done. That's 2 passes at turn 3 on lap 48 and 49. Well done, James Moffat.
He's opened up a pretty substantial gap now over Stephen Johnson, his teammate. So this is a great charge. 7th, and next one in his gun sights will be Fabian Coulthard. So at the moment it's Lowndes, Slade, Van Gisbergen, Reynolds, Tander. Great recovery.
Great recovery, Garth Tander. Started 19th, 14 positions. So their strategy's been good.
Whincup did get Winterbottom. Remember I said he was lurking in the back. He was 0.2 away last lap. He's managed to climb up now to 17th.
Our producers are cruel, aren't they? Look at that. They've done a movers and shakers. Started second, currently 17th. Although if you did it as a graph representation, it looked like the stock market, because he's ended up down at 28th. He's fighting his way back up. Not to mention, though,
P17, Holdsworth is next.
and he's right, Mark Dutton, great driving, because when he came back out, Jamie Whincup landed some pretty heavy blows. He now owns the lap record around here by some margin, 110.16. So the rescue and recovery job is going well, but it's still going to be a bitter pill to swallow at the end of this day, no question, because it's going to hurt his championship lead by a massive tune. If they finish this way, that's what it'll be. Just 74 points of difference going into the Enduros.
He's just slicing through these guys now. So that's for 16th for Whincup. That was Holdsworth, Lee Holdsworth, who carved up early the outside of turn 1. So it's a real burst of pace here. Interestingly, he's still 58 seconds off the lead. So that's almost been a static margin to Craig Lowndes. At Mark's observation earlier about this massive margin, 1st and 2nd, and near enough to 30 seconds up the road on the rest of the field.
Well, coming into this event, Craig Lowndes was second on the championship, but had yet to win a race for 2011. In fact, his last race win before here was in Tasmania last season. And boy, hasn't he turned it around. Winning both sprint races yesterday, starting from pole position for race 16, getting pole again today, and continually fighting off this charge by this young gun, Tim Slade, who is starting to get closer and closer. The gap is now under a second for Slade, searching for his first ever championship win.
He come out of the pits, Matt, 3 seconds behind Craig Lowndes. Over that period of time, we said it was a 22-lap sprint. So in these, look at that, look at those gaps. Although the 47's a big chunk, the rest are little margins, and you've got to be careful about the way you do this. But his experience over yesterday's 22-lap races will serve him well. This is a really great contest.
And only he knows, of all the people around this precinct, what condition these tyres are in, what the car feels like, and what you can get away with. What you don't want to do now is burn them off the car, so you've got nothing to fight with later. But I'd suggest that what you're saying is 100% right, that you got a feel for this yesterday. He's pretty confident with the way the car's set at the moment. He must have a high degree of confidence that he can do this without a big price to pay.
And although they look like they're reasonably under control, please trust me when I say they will be driving these cars at 100% on the edge of going off everywhere. You see how much road they're using everywhere, right to the edge of the road, using every bit of goodness from these tyres, especially with only 13 laps to go.
Craig, as you saw with the graphic that went up earlier, has just had so much front-running experience over such a long period of time. There's a mental position that you take when you're achieving what he's achieving and has done in motor racing over a period of time. But I think, again, underscoring what Tim Slade's doing out there at the moment, I'm sure there have been, but there's been no obvious errors that I've seen in 2 days of racing and what's nearly now 3 races. So he raced hard in 2 races yesterday. He's racing hard today. See no lock breaks, no big moments, no nothing. There's that target Fabian Coulthard said before that James was on him. Well, he's got him. He's 6th.
And now 5th.
And now 5th.
That is a great drive.
Good on him.
He went and grabbed Coulthard, and now he's down the inside of Tander at turn 3. This is impressive stuff. I know Alan will be watching. His dad, one of the greatest drivers that we've seen in this country, and he'll be watching intently as young James forges his way forward in this race. Dave Reynolds is next.
Well, think about some of the names on the leaderboard here. Tim Slade is 2nd. Shane Van Gisbergen is 3rd. David Reynolds is 4th. James Moffat is 5th. This is a changing of the guard.
Well, it's not only a changing of the guard, these are career-changing moments, aren't they? James Moffat, driver of the day. I mean, Garth Tander, Coulthard, Russell Ingall, and every one of those is a banker, aren't they? He puts those in his bank of experiences, done that. And that, to me, at this stage of his career, great stuff.
Someone's got a car out there on 7 cylinders,
Yeah,
I
it
think,
sounded like a bad miss, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's a really good point, Larko, because as you round those sorts of guys up, you go and past Garth Tander or Russell Ingall, and the way that has unfolded for James Moffat today, we saw him get involved in a little fracas. He forged his way back forward again, and to get to 5th position in this field, I can't reiterate enough what a great job that is. There's Whincup coming up onto the back of Bardwana. This guy is very, very fast, we know, and he's down now. When we've compared this lap time, the whole race, he's 57.5 seconds behind Craig Lowndes. So he's taken about a second or a second and a half out of Craig Lowndes across the whole race.
Sprinkles of water on the screen there as well. He's tucked up in behind Jason Bardwana. Now, interestingly, just on the subject of Moffat again, he's 4.9 seconds behind David Reynolds if he's going to challenge for 4th placing, and to the 2nd sector split at the moment, he's 0.3 quicker than Davey. So he is on the hunt to maybe even further improve this position he's got at the moment. So, as the boys just said, here's Whincup, 16th, still just inside a minute off the lead of the race. Hard day at the office for Jamie, trying to claw back every last point that he can get to preserve that championship lead. But this, no matter what happens here, he's going to go to Phillip Island and Bathurst and the Gold Coast. All 3 of these races, very different in rhythm, very different in structure, and with a lot of points up over those 3 weekends, and without the cushion that he probably thought he was going to carry in there.
Well, every spot that he can get here, every position he can get here in between now and the end of this race will be worth another 3 points to him. Doesn't sound like much, but it'll certainly mean a lot at the end of the day. It's been a good job to fight back, given the troubles that he's got. There's another spot and another 3 points in the bag for our championship leader. Job's not done with yet. What about at the front? His teammate, can he hold off the 20-somethings? We'll find out soon.
Laps to go, mate. Still a long way to go. Look after those tyres. Great job. Thank you.
11 years ago, Craig Lowndes came to this circuit for the Holden Racing team and walked away with a clean sweep and then returned the same year to win the 500. He's got a lot of great history here, and it is continuing today. He leads Tim Slade. 1.4 seconds is the advantage. 10 full laps remaining of the Coates Hire 300.
He was just fractionally quicker to the first timing sector then than the guy that's trying ever so hard to hunt him down, Tim Slade. It's only just a little less than a tenth of a second. Now this is Whincup on Todd Kelly. Job done. Down into turn 1. So Jamie's now 15th. 58.1 seconds off the lead. It's like he's locked on that number or near enough to it.
What it shows is how hard both the Vodafone guys are driving. One's at the front of the field, and the other one's forging his way through the field, and effectively they've done the same pace for the race.
So curious to consider what may have been. Doesn't apply that sentence, of course, in motor racing, but would have been an interesting battle between the two Vodafone cars and Slade when you threw another car into this mix. I mean, imagine putting another car in the middle of this, as if it isn't intense enough. 1.2 seconds is the gap now. Lowndes and Slade. Unbelievable. And Moffat continues to show a little bit better pace than David Reynolds. He's just 3.1 seconds behind David Reynolds now. Here's Shane Van Gisbergen. Bit of a quiet run for him in third at the moment. He's 31.7 seconds away from Tim Slade, and he's 3.2 up the road from David Reynolds. There's David in the background. Here's the gap. There's James Moffat.
And the other thing that's happened in the last couple of laps is, I was just about to say, you can just see at the top right of your screen then, is Fabian Coulthard has caught his quasi-teammate, Garth Tander. He's only 0.2 of a second behind. He's right up behind Garth. Made a lot of ground on the factory Holden team.
Garth started 19th up into the...
And I'm just standing on the pit wall, guys. Neil, you said before you can hear a car sound flat and horrible. That's actually Garth Tander's car. I'd say it's dropped a header off or broken a head of the exhaust pipe out of the engine there. And but I've been watching them closely for a few laps. It absolutely has not affected his top speed.
They sound terrible though, don't they? Every time it's gone past, it sounds like one of your old tractors, Larko. But
sounded like Larko's race cars, actually, what it sounded like.
So he's 6th at the moment, although he's under some pressure from Fabian Coulthard. The margin is back out to 1.4 seconds. Lowndes and Slade. Yeah, there's that confirmation of that dreadful sound that Mark just spoke of.
So the leading group that time around, James Moffat into the 111s. Everybody around him deep into the 112s.
Exactly, 11.65 for Moffat. A lot faster than anybody else in that group. So we keep on saying it, very impressive speed for young James Moffat.
Well, he's just 2.2 seconds away now from David Reynolds, so we took that shot a little earlier, just showed the margin and how far he had to run in order to get into contact with David Reynolds. Back on board here with Whincup, 14th. Next one in his gun sights is Greg Murphy.
Look at his wheel progression and the rate that he turns the wheel at. It's very, very smooth. He's so smooth with it. That's why he makes the tyres live.
So there's Murph in the Pepsi Max entry, 13th at the moment. He's got a bit of a cushion over Jamie.
Jamie will battle to get there, won't he?
A little glimpse of him in the background. Hasn't been a bad weekend for Greg. Pretty good run yesterday. Great progress in the first race, event number 16 in the championship, and then a couple of other guys smartened their cars up and they didn't really march forward with the Pepsi Max car in race 17. But it's still a very good result.
Great shot in the turn
today.
one, isn't it? You've been saying about the bumps all weekend, and a great shot at the back of the cars trying to settle before you turn the cars to the corner.
Well, it's just so busy down there and it's a bit rare. We don't see those sorts of bumps. The frequency of the bumps around here are quite different in all the different locations, and that's why it's such an engineering headache. Look at them.
Look at the marbles on the left and the right. All those pieces of soft compound Dunlop torn off the rest of the tyre.
Your steering inputs and your brake treatment to clear those bumps into turn one are quite different in your driving approach to many other tracks around the country as well. Just what you've got to do to deal with that is quite odd.
Well, you've actually got to drive deeper into the corner to miss the bumps, so it's actually sort of counterintuitive. You want to slow down, but you can't. You've got to drive over the bumps on the throttle, because if you drive over the bumps on the brake, it upsets the car worse.
Lowndes rounding up Will Davison here. Gee, just again, it's another weekend at Queensland Raceway, as it's been dating all the way back to '99, where you've either got a car in the zone or you have not, full stop, exclamation. You know, and the cars that aren't working here, it's a long afternoon. It's one of those days where you peel the overalls back and look at the watch and think, another hour to go.
What flight am I on? And here's Moffat up behind Dave Reynolds. We've spoken about Dave all weekend. Great performance in qualifying today, showing real speed in the Kelly Racing Stratco Commodore. And young James Moffat hunts him down. He might even have a dive down here. This is where he had a big lunge before. Be careful, be careful.
Be patient.
Yep, don't do anything weird. Right up behind. You can't be any closer without bumping that red Commodore.
We're both sweating up for him here.
Exactly.
I just had a horrible feeling there that he was going to have the big lunge, but this time it looks like he can get it done cleaner.
Yeah.
And Davey,
you don't need to make the contact. Anyway, it's done. Boys are wrapped. Check the steering straight. That's the only thing you want to do now.
That's the danger, isn't it? If you do make the contact, you know, you can just be so careful you don't whack a steering rod, cut a tyre.
Up to fourth. One position away from a podium for young James Moffat.
And on track for his personal best ever by a mile. So it's a great performance. How far is he behind Van Gisbergen?
3.5.
3.5 seconds.
Five to go. He could do this, you know. He's actually got enough pace. We'll see. There they are. There's the gap.
He'll be pressing on. That's to get onto the podium. So this is for third spot as Moffat. You can see that blue Falcon up there, and his eyes will be like saucers. He'll have those Peter Brock eyes going. Remember those Brock eyes?
And there's nothing like being able to see that you're reeling in the guy in front to be able to find that extra little bit of performance.
So Lowndes has just snuck away a little bit to keep you up to speed with the Tim Slade gap. 1.8 seconds now. So Lowndes, Slade, Van Gisbergen, we've seen this to Moffat, Reynolds, Tander, Coulthard, Alex Davison, Steve Johnson, Russell Ingall, and we're there with Russell Ingall right now. As James Courtney comes up onto the back of Russell Ingall. They're good mates.
Yeah,
they won't be mates in a minute when the last couple of laps unfold here.
James just got Rick Kelly, I think, on that last lap. This little battle continues with the evil-sounding Tandemobile. It's broken a... It does. It sounds shocking. It's broken a header. The danger there is that, you know, it can do damage to other things around it, blowing hot gas somewhere where it shouldn't, a bit like you.
Beautifully returned serve there, too.
Oh, that's right. So 2 seconds now is the gap. Lowndes Slade. 1.9, in fact, just over the last timing intermediate. And Shane Van Gisbergen continuing to do a fantastic championship job here. I think that needs to be emphasised as well. You know, he didn't have a great first race yesterday. They tickled the car up, recovered nicely, and they're remaining on track for... Well, that does sound bad, you have to agree.
Yeah, right.
So, impressive performance.
Oh, there we go.
Who's that?
That's James Courtney and Russell Ingall. We're just saying about the mates. It could be a little... This is good.
Wow.
That's funny.
In between turns 4 and 5.
There won't be much humour when they have a chat about it afterwards. This is all good news for Whincup because it just points in the bag for him when all that's going on. So his march continues. What happened here?
I bet Russell waved then. I bet he waved as he pushed him along like a tractor. Here we go. Watch this. Look for the Russell wave. Gets up the inside. They have a little bump. Have a little bump just now. And then he stays in it. Pushes him along. Hey, mate. See you, bud. Oops.
Might stay away from that part of the paddock later in the afternoon, I think.
I'd say that Russell won't like this, but he might have to get his checkbook out for that.
So that leaves Whincup 11th. Now that's a terrific recovery, isn't it, when you consider where he started this race from. Still 56 seconds off the lead.
And he'll get 11. To Rick Kelly.
He will.
Yeah.
11th is worth 72 points for Jamie Whincup. At one stage, you remember he was right back and last. He was going to leave this day with just 21 points, so it has been a good recovery.
Now the Moffat charge has eased a bit. I'd say that the tyres might they've thrown the white flag. Yeah, okay, he's off because he was 0.1 slower than Shane Van Gisbergen on the last lap, so they may have seen their best now, but it's been a very well fought campaign from him this afternoon.
Lowndes have to be careful here because a couple of back runners in front, D'Alberto and Winterbottom, need to be careful not to get caught up with Slade so close. Only a lap to go.
Tim's nicked a bit more time back out of that again. It's 1.6. It's not enough though, is it? But it's still a weekend that he can walk away from with his head up high, Tim Slade.
Do you see those marbles there? You don't need to get too wide. You'd be in the fence there on the left, wouldn't you?
They're sort of upper-sized now. They're tennis balls, aren't they? They're huge.
You guys need a good lie down after this one, don't you? So Craig Lowndes brings it around turn 3. He has held off this charge from the young guns all weekend, in fact. And what a time to do it. There's just something about Lowndes in this time of year. He knows that the mountain is calling soon. Jeremy Moore and the rest of the Team Vodafone crew, who've had something of a bittersweet day, make their way to the wall to salute this man who has already in his career done it and won it all. But this one will be very special for Craig Lowndes because this victory puts him in an exclusive club. 80 career race wins for Craig Lowndes. Tim Slade in second, and Shane Van Gisbergen will hold off James Moffat and join the podium. The youngest driver here in the field. Rounds the final turn as well. And the Giz puts a lot of points in the bag. Stone Brothers Racing will be happy about this performance.
Well, that's 2 of their cars on the podium. Peter Wallace from the engine department in the foreground. Ross Stone, his brother Jim, team owners. And what a great effort. Look at this.
Still going all the way to the checkered flag. And here comes Jamie Whincup. He's going to limp across the line, and Ingle and Courtney.
Now, what's going on here?
Get a wriggle on. This isn't over yet.
No, there's plenty of drama going on. There's obviously been some problems there with Whincup, but there's plenty of drama between Courtney and Ingle. I said before that they're mates, but in racing land, this is pretty wild.
He's having a look at his mirrors. He's not happy, Russell.
Here we go. It's still not over.
It's still going on.
Oh, he's giving him a hit.
That's free, mate. Just have to slow right down. Lowndes has just laid a big smoky.
So that's Craig Lowndes in front, has left those smoke signals behind, saying, I've just grabbed another victory, and that was quite extraordinary because no question at all.
But the wider question
here
is what happened with this bloke?
Look at how this day has finished for Jamie Whincup. Unbelievable. He did get across the line in 10th. That's the important thing. So these are the results. Extraordinary. You think it's all done at the finish line. Not this time around. Craig Lowndes, Tim Slade and Shane Van Gisbergen. That is your podium. And I mentioned an exclusive club. Only one man has won 80 or more races. He's with us in the commentary box. Mark Scaife, the all-time career race leader on 89 race wins. So Lowndes goes up to 80 and Ingle and Courtney 11th and 12th. A whole lot more to that story, you reckon. And a hard luck story for Jason Bright. No question about it. He had a lot of pace. He qualified well. He was in with a shot in this one. His day ended in the garage. And Jamie Whincup, we're going to have to get to the bottom of what happened there. But in the end, it was a good save. It was a good rescue. After missing the start, qualifying second, starting in pit lane, getting a pit lane drive-through, going all the way to the tail of the field, bringing it up to 10th, and then finishing it in the dirt. That's some kind of day.
It was a great drive, wasn't it? Really good drive.
Here it is.
This was a great drive.
Awesome stuff. Great drive.
Well, he's won 3 V8 Supercar Championships. He's made no secret of the fact lately that Bathurst is where it really stands for him in the future, but right now he's on target to angle for a 4th career title. And there's some stories to tell up and down pit lane. The effort of Tim Slade today and this weekend, brilliant, and the same can be said for James Moffat.
Craig Lowndes, congratulations, an 80th career victory. What a weekend this has been.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. Look, it's our home track, and the guys did a sensational job. Yesterday we had a mix-up, obviously, with that 2 races, but today we had that long race. And look, to Tim and the Stonebryes, look, they had a great day, and they pushed me all the way to the end. We had a great strategy going on, but again, to our guys, fantastic day.
Well done, a day to celebrate. Enjoy it tonight, Lounsey.
I will. Thanks, Brett.
All right, let's catch up with Tim Slade. What a weekend it's been for Tim. Tim, congratulations. You've really put a mark in the sand this weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. You know, it's a credit to everyone at Stone Brothers Racing. You know, we've Ross has spoken about the complete weekend for me, and that's what it was. You know, we haven't ventured outside the top 3 all weekend. 3 podiums. Shane's up here as well, and I better mention my man James Rosenberg, because he's actually overseas. The first one he's away for, and we have a perfect weekend. I got lots of thanks to James. I didn't thank him yesterday, so I felt quite bad. So it was good to do it for him today.
Good on you, Tim. Well done. Enjoy it up on the podium again.
No worries, I will.
And Shane Van Gisbergen. Shane, congratulations, climbing up there into 3rd spot. It's a changing of the guard at the moment, isn't it? We're seeing some great, exciting new drivers come through.
Oh, definitely. We just weren't on the hunt today. We been struggling with the front of our car all weekend, and we got a bit better today. But well done to Lounsey on all his clean sweep, and Tim's done a great job. He's outclassed us in the same car, so I got to get back to work and get myself back in front of him. But great for Stone Brothers, 2 cars on the podium, and thanks to SP Tools, Ford, and all our great sponsors. It's awesome.
Well done, Shane. Enjoy the celebration.
Cool. Thank you. I will.
Now, if you're wondering why these guys are puffing and panting, it's not because they drove that hard. A lot of biff and barge out there. Now you've come and obviously shaking hands. What went on? Well, there's 2 versions. 2 versions. Yours?
Well, I actually thought it was Tander.
And yours?
Well, I guess he thought it was Tander. No, it was, look, you know, racing hard all day and contact's going to happen, but I just come over and said, you idiot. But no, it was, yeah.
All right, mate, lay one more on him. Good work.
He thought it was Garp. Oh, it just kept going. What a weird way to finish this race.
Get off, Eagle. Oh, I'm on the petrol car.